G'day guys, I'm just going to go through this the Randwick meeting. Obviously do it with Paul as well with the Punters Academy. I think that's good because it sort of gives both our opinions, but I just thought I'd give a quick roundup too. Bit of a weird meeting, won't take long because I think most of these horses are coming to the end of their prep and we won't see a lot of them again. Certainly very wary, and obviously all the form in the last few weeks that showed this week, there's a lot of horses sort of coming to the end of their preparations before grand final day, the testing tracks, training under these conditions. There's a million different sort of sets of circumstances that we're trying to add up here and basically guesstimate what the best decision is on each and every race, but there is no exact science. Not that there ever is, but it's far more difficult now than usual. And then over the coming weeks, we're going to have to deal with horses coming from, say, Sydney to Brisbane, where they might strike dry surfaces, the weather may clear up, and we've got to try and work out which horses are then going to start to rapidly improve off the form that they've shown. So, and we've got to also weigh up whether they're cooked and in a position to improve or not. So it's not going to get much easier for a few weeks, but bear with me and everyone else because it is not easy at the moment, and we're just trying to sort of do our best to guesstimate how it's all sort of working out. And anyway, getting into the meeting, I thought that the track was an interesting one, that I thought it was very testing, and I think the further the races went, the more testing the surface was, literally. So the further the race was, the further you've got to run, and the track was taking it out of the horses back in the race so much that they were struggling to run on. There weren't many fast sections for the day, except for Marzu that walked and Knight's Order, who kept going. The rest of them were all run really slowly. So I'd imagine not many horses ran on in most of those races. The shorter races, if you cut up under them, you could make a bit of ground. But if it was a testing longer race, so I'm talking a mile plus, not many horses made ground at all. So I can only put that down to a really testing surface overall. It was like a 10.5, but it was really, taking the sprint out of their legs because they just couldn't sustain any sort of run. And I think the best example of that's the Queen Elizabeth, where horses, they didn't even go fast there and nothing was able to run on. It's a weird race and obviously not a high class showing of a high class race, but and there was a lot went on, but just a really weird track where it was hard to come from back and wide and circle off any sort of tempo past a mile. And if you wanted to make ground in the shorter races, you basically had to cut up under them and try not to go around too many. So the first race, there wasn't much to say about it. Williamsburg just set off the speed early. Thought the race was basically they went very quickly. They sort of went 9 lengths above to the 800 and slowed down from that point. They've come home about 18 lengths below average the last 600 metres of the race. 800 metres of the race, 13 lengths below the last 600. Interesting observation I've made is that Willie Pike's really struggling to hold horses that get on speed. Tends to over-race with a lot of horses and struggles to get them to settle. And I think that's why he must ride so quietly a lot of the time in Western Australia, and he's really struggling to adapt to riding on pace runners for the trainers over here. I think in Perth maybe he just basically did whatever he wanted there. It was a bit like putting Bowman or McDonald on in Sydney, that you didn't tell him to do too much, and I just find that he gets a lot of horses going really keenly. I'm not saying it's his fault in this case. An observation that a lot of horses that he rides closer to the tempo tend to spend more in the run than they probably should be. I thought it was a really bad ride on Matcha Latte here. I think it's a horse that can be followed with confidence next preparation. I think it's probably all a bit too much for it now, and I'm not saying it cost it the race here. I think getting squeezed out and being ridden really patiently early won the race for Williamsburg. Moko probably just poked up a little bit more and tried to hold a position, got going a little bit keen, and that cost it in the finish, whereas you can see Williamsburg's even being slapped up to hold a position. So they've gone way too fast early. Williamsburg's cut up under them and then come through the middle. Moko's tried to cut under them completely, and late they're dominant. Russian Roni is whacked away, and Matchalade sort of just kept coming to. Probably should have run third. Not saying it should have won. Definitely should have run third. Very strange ride, but you would imagine. I see that Williamsburg's in the market for Saturday. Surely that's ridiculous. I think it's like an $8 chance, and there's $1.60 about Fireburn. I'd expect Fireburn to shorten if Williamsburg went around on Saturday start much longer, I still don't think it would. Maybe they will, because there's only going to be 5 or 6 runners maybe. But I couldn't be finding Williamsburg off this performance. And Moko tried hard. Not much to learn there. Race 2, South Pacific Classic. I do think this is a good race from a future perspective. I do think the winner's gone through the roof as a horse. I thought it was a great ride from Sam Clipperton here, where he could have been stuck in no man's land and he decided to press forward. The opposite for Shorts, who decided to sit wide, no cover. Lock Eagle pokes up in the middle, does get every chance in the run and runs quite well. Just sort of go fast forward, not a lot happens in the run. Certainly wasn't easy to come wide here, so Shonka's run was okay. I think it's probably towards the end of its preparation. Bend the Knee ends up going back towards the inside, which certainly wasn't ideal, and it ran okay. Probably goes to Brisbane, and don't want to completely sack it. Ton of Grit didn't do much. Go Tearley ran on okay, but as we sort of said, it was pretty difficult to run on from back in the pack, and they didn't really go quick here and come home okay. So its run may be a little bit masked, and Zethus wasn't too bad up in distance off a break too. So I'm not sacking these 2 horses. Think they can go to Brisbane and measure up. I think Bent the Knee can, and I think these 2 horses definitely can. They're all early enough in their prep to have life left in their legs. The first 5 across the line in the South Pacific. Provincial Championship, certainly not a race that needs too much looking at. I just looking at it in review, I think that Great News was an enormous run. Very fast tempo, worked very hard to get up outside the leader, put that horse away. All of the challenges have had cold sits on it. The winner was probably the exception, that it had to sit wide for the probably first half of the race and work to find a spot before getting cover before the turn, but I thought its effort was still very good. And French Marine just sort of sat behind him. Kiss Some was a little bit unlucky, but did have that perfect run where it cut through and then held up, and certainly a good thing beaten, it looks like. But I think there was more merit in the runs of Great News and Kinlock than marginally than Kiss Some, and Never Talk was probably the unlucky runner in the race, squeezed out at the start and never really in a comfortable position. But most of these horses you would have expected this was their grand final, so I don't want to do too much here. I am forgiving of Grand Remore, who went back towards the inside as well, similar to Bend the Knee in the first race. And there's a heap of horses here that, next preparation won't be going to 1400 metre races. Horses like Mayrose just doesn't run the trip. Astero, I don't think, runs the trip. And very good effort by Kinlock. I underrated it. Thought it would struggle possibly at a strong 1400. It certainly didn't have that issue on Saturday. So interesting race, but not sure the form's too important over the next few weeks at least. Percy Sykes, a really good training performance from Team Snowden here. Got this horse ready. My view on this race is that the horses with the fresher legs certainly came to the fore. So the Willinga Beast, who's had the 1 start and ran very well there, but had a couple of trials and one clean out run, was well set up here. Paris Dior, who was put away, given 2 clean out trials and presented here, just had the fresher legs than other horses that tried to get to Slipper. Then just a little freshen and trial into this. It looks like it really backfired to a certain degree. So the only horse that was the exception was Lady Laguna. Thought it ran really well, hard and tough up on the speed. Got to the front and then just got tired late, which is understandable. But all the horses like, get the right race, John. What have I done here? Have I missed a race or have I lost race 4? Lost race 4. Important race not to lose. I just want to get their names right, because I think for their next preparation they can run well. So I think OJ's done its job. I think it's 1,000 to 1,100 metre horse at the most. I think Dashing Legend can come back a nice horse. It's one of those horses that just missed out on the Slipper and went back 35 days, trialled and tried to freshen up for this, and I don't think it's worked. Magic Carpet can come back. I thought Pantenario can go to Brisbane and race well. It was only first up here for 70 days and it pokes through up the inside late. Swift Sweet, I'd be totally forgiving this preparation. I've really got a lot of time for this horse. North Star Lat, who was similar to the winner and second horse had only had the one start at Warwick Farm the other day, but just got cooked here. Just they went too quick, and the horse outside it over-raced another one with Willie Pike on it that he just couldn't seem to hold, and it sort of drove North Star Lass mad, and it's still right there in the firing line till the 200 and just gets a little bit tired late, understandably. I think, even possibly 3 weeks between runs up to Brisbane, if this horse is sent that way, could improve on a dry track, could be one of those horses that he just still keeps fighting, and I like to see that in a horse. But I think this horse will be, this form will be very strong, whether it's in the spring or whether it goes on to Brisbane. You just got to be careful that the horse has still got life in its legs, because a horse like Lady Laguna, you wouldn't imagine, has too much, quality racing left in it this preparation, but has done enough this time on the testing surfaces to take seriously next time. The, whatever you want to call this, Arrowfield Sprint Royal Sovereign, really slow tempo here, which allowed a great ride from Sam Clipperton. I thought sort of really made sure he bounced Marzou out, just dictated to Tommy rather than Tommy dictating to him the whole race. Just sits on his hammer the whole way. They went way too slow, which played into the hands of Marzou, but I don't think Sam was going to let him out of his sight regardless, but it certainly didn't allow him to drag the sprint out of him either. So as soon as it became a sit sprint, Marzou was in his element, and he continued on his merry way, going very well, hard fit, and I think he's put a similar performance together to what he's put the last few starts, and he's run well. Palili never really looked like catching them in the sit sprint and was a little bit weak late. Dominant effort from the first two. I think that both of them can possibly go to Brisbane. They may pull Marzou away now. I didn't really listen to any of the interviews after the race. Old mate, he's having a lovely time. But he could go to Brisbane and race very well. In the Congo certainly can as well. I'm assuming that's where he's heading. He's only sort of second up, so I'm assuming he's going up there for something. Sydney Cup's only really worth talking about for the... Sorry, we've got the Oaks next. Why have I got these races out of order? 6, 7, 8. The Oaks next. Hopefully a few of you found this horse. I certainly didn't have great confidence about it. I think I had fourth pick. It was just sort of the value run of the race at $28 and marked at about half of that, I think. I wasn't too keen on the race, really, and I was lucky to sort of back it more as something to watch. But the horse went really well. Its form was quite good up until last start, when it sort of sat on a fast tempo and then showed up here 22 days between runs and never seen a heavy track. So there were huge queries about it, but it was a Johnny on the spot. It was in the right place at the right time and ran really well in the run. Gypsy Goddess certainly looked the winner, and El Patroness just runs the race out a little bit stronger, as we sort of thought might be the case. Hinged, especially once it wasn't up on a slow tempo. They did go quite quick here, got quite keen in the run and didn't run the trip out, but tried very hard. I think other horses like Pink Ivory had just come to the end of her preparation. It was deep into her first prep, and not surprising that she was just gassed here. Honey Creeper, I think I got it right, as in I thought it found the right race last start, and back in this race was always going to be tougher to handle than back last week, where they slowed down and she crept into the race and used a turn of foot, whereas this time it was a bit more of a hard and tough staying test. They ran fast overall time off a fast tempo, and she just struggled to sprint into it. But you would imagine El Patroness this could be a grand final. They could put her away and set her for the spring, or they could go on to Brisbane. Gypsy Goddess very similar. Jim Martini very similar. She's only going to find races like this in her 3-year-old career, and they do look a level below, say, Caulfield Cup calculations. So maybe they do persevere and try and race on. Honey Creeper might do the same. They might just think that they're that level below, so this might be their chance at sort of Oaks black type while they're still 3. Sydney Cup, as you sort of said, another race that doesn't really have a form point going forward, but we'll talk about it. This horse is just flying, really good ride. Rode it perfectly, as in even sections, quickened at the right time and put them to the sword. Certainly the perfect storm from a setup point of view, as in 7-day back up 26-32, found the perfect track that was testing for whatever reason, and this horse's one attribute that it does have is stamina. Had a flawless preparation, struggled to win the last two, unfortunately for us, as we've sort of been following him. Hopefully a few people again backed up and at least had him going around a small winner on Saturday. I know he wasn't a great result, but he wasn't that hard to find. Just it looked like horses like No Compromise or something similar, like Shiraz may outsprint him, but he was just too hard and tough and had conditions to suit. A number of runners back in the field that were, had excuses and pulled up with issues and everything, but all honours with the winner, really. Stockman was okay coming down this back part of the track, having to make a long and wide run. It really, I don't see this as being Melbourne Cup form. Maybe the winner. He's a hard and tough bowler that if he found conditions again on the day come Melbourne Cup time, he may run well, but I can't take him too seriously, especially when Dakeen Sweet Jr. is the only horse running on in the race. Queen Elizabeth, I really couldn't explain this race too much. What happened? They obviously didn't go very fast, but they slowed down. So it's a fast tempo because it's a poor race for the quality of the race. So they've gone out pretty steady and then slowed down from there. So that makes it a fast tempo, even though they never went fast. It's interesting that Mount Popper beats home these horses. Animo, Very Elegant, Montefilia and Douay trying to come wide. The great moment in time when Nash decides to put the left-hand blinker on in a big way and try and head out for this. What's incredible is he gets right out here. I know he drifts in a bit late, but just an incredible ride to get the horse that wide and find that better lane. He talked about following, so sort of cantering a horse down that part of the track earlier in the day and got a feeling for it, and he's kept that up his sleeve, and I definitely think it was the winning move, and I think it's probably saved him a few lengths because it's just not a horse that really handles super soft going, and I know Zaki's not really been tested on it too much either, but I would say that he's on paper a classier type that's expected to get through it, and the ride was definitely the winning move. What do you do with the race? I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised if we don't see Animo or Very Elegant again. Douay may have come to the end of it, or the track was just not to her liking at all. You can see here that they're all off the bit and none of them make any ground, and Mount Popper comes under him and makes a bit of ground, and the roughies basically ran 1, 3, 4, and Zaki overperformed for mine. So I think the answer's a pineapple there. It's just a funny race that I'll pen coming towards the spring because it will hold pretty much no relevance going forward. Good win here from Nimmerley again. Hope everyone I think had its second pick on the sheets and marked it about 15 points shorter than what it started. So hopefully a few people chimed in to Nimmerley here. The conditions certainly suited it, the way the race was run, the perfect ride from Damien Oliver sitting in behind. Peaked fitness-wise and was quite dominant late. Can't knock the win. Can't say it was flattered in any way. Certainly had things go its way in the run. Does get a little bit keen here again, which it did last start. So she's probably got more racing in her. She's showing that she's racing in good heart and finished her race right off here. So no reason she can't go to Brisbane and continue to be very competitive in any mare's race, or even possibly line up for Weight for Age. Considering there won't be too many of those sorts of horses around, I wouldn't imagine. So it'll be interesting here. There are a few horses that failed, like Fangirl and Colette, which will mask the true performance here. But I think the time was quite solid, and the horse ran well. Not too many excuses for Anavisto Evangelic. They ran okay. I think Lighthouse has come to the end of it. Lalude probably just shown up a little bit class-wise. Yonce ran okay, but had its chance. Ice Bath, as always, running on from back in the field. Probably one of the better runs of the day, really, especially from a back marker, and through the line very strong. Yet again, a really consistent horse that he's got huge prize money in the bank now without too many wins, so you don't see that too often. And the racing pattern's probably her biggest issue, but continues to race well. But all honours with Nimmerley here, I thought, and can't see any reason why she won't continue to race well. Anavisto ran well, just a little bit keen in the front, and I'm not sure what they'll do with her. She's only sort of just getting into her prep. This is probably a grand final, but no surprise to see her heading up to Brisbane. Last race of the day, I think a few of this will probably end up in Brisbane too, so worth having a little bit of a look at it. Perfect ride from J-Mac on Bella Nipotina, sat just behind him. As predicted, Bellucci Babe just ridden a little bit too close, and while looking the winner, doesn't run out a strong 1200. Tricky Gal gets back in the field strong late. Just couldn't really nip it. Bella Nibertino, he does have a bit of class on Tricky Bell, and with the right run was just a little bit too solid. Thought Wonderbar was ridden way too close and a bit too urgent. Just should have been allowed to find its feet a bit more, track through, and probably goes a bit closer. And that's why it didn't finish this race off as well, but just sort of kept battling on. Everything else pretty predictable, and Gary Portelli's horse out here trying to find the fast lane, but it would have needed a cricket pitch to get home. Emanate, the one that was a bit soft late. Which ones go on? Not easy to tell, but there's a few here that can improve. I don't think this will be a bad form race at all, even though the time's not super strong in the last section's pretty average. I think it was a bridge race for a lot of horses, like some that don't run strong 12 and others that sort of want 1400 to a mile. So I'll be keeping an eye on anyway those horses out of the race. I wouldn't be saying they're all incapable of winning if they do end up in the Brisbane and the Carnival in a couple of weeks. So I think Paris Dior and Willinga Beast can go up to Brisbane and race well. I think they're my two main horses to follow out of the meeting. In the Congo can go up to Brisbane and race well. No doubt that Gypsy Lass, Gypsy Goddess can get to a Queensland Oaks if they choose and run well. Sydney Cup, all those horses are. Nimali can go up to Brisbane and race well for sure. So can Anavisto if they go that way. Not much of a meeting, and it's a grand final day for most horses, and then you've got track conditions and all sorts of things to bring into play. So it's hard to be too confident about too many horses going out of it, but not a bad day's racing. Hopefully a couple of those roughies were found by everyone, and you didn't do too much damage on the day, and hopefully come out a small winner, as it's a bit of a testing period, as I've said, and tried to outline why, and hopefully it all makes sense. Thanks, guys.